Well, Michael Owen just yesterday came out and said that his last few years he wasn't, ready to play. He wanted to retire. Then Alan Shearer has come out and had an absolute go at him that he's let these people down, the fans, the players, the management. What's your take on it?
It's always easier to come out and be a little bit more honest when you've finished. And there are things that you can say when you've finished that you can't say during your playing days. But I think to come out and say for 6 or 7 years, I was desperate to retire. I wasn't quite fit. I didn't want to run in the channels in case I got injured. Didn't play the penultimate game here because I was out of contract, and if I'd got injured, I might not have got a contract somewhere else.
He didn't actually say that, but that's reported that he said that to somebody.
Yeah. Knowing Michael, he might have done.
Well, maybe. I actually admire his honesty. I mean, don't we want to hear these type of things? Whether it's right or wrong, whether we agree with it or we don't agree with it, don't we want to get inside the mind of, let's face it, one of the top England strikers
I think that
in our history.
The big caveat in all this is, did the managers that he was playing for know that? And actually, there's a big chance that they did. Did they know that he wasn't 100% fit? Yes, because he had that hamstring issue and those thigh issues for a long, long time. Would have they known that he was unhappy at that stage and couldn't push himself? Yes. So although Michael's come out and been very, very honest and said that, managers have to hold their hands up. Owners that bought him at that stage, knowing full well that he had injury problems, also have to take a little bit of responsibility.
Listen, there are players who peak when they're young, and there are players who peak when they're old, and
some of us never peak.
And some of us
still waiting.
Both of us here never peak. But I just think he was one of those players who burst onto the scene, was unbelievable. He didn't think about football, he just reacted to it. He was so fast, his movement, he had the composure in front of goal. He was a world-class striker. As time went on and he had those injuries, he had to then develop his game. He was a fantastic striker. Where I think Wayne Rooney is not just a world-class striker but a world-class footballer, I think Michael Owen would have found it difficult to develop his skills in the way that, say, a Wayne Rooney could drop into midfield or can play that number 10 role or anything like that.
Like Giggs did as well, didn't he?
Like Giggsy did as well. There's not that many. Some are just absolutely perfect for that position and not able to play. Even someone like Alan Shearer. I put Wayne Rooney above Alan Shearer because I think that Wayne Rooney was a better footballer. A striker, absolutely unbelievable, Alan Shearer, incredible. But Wayne Rooney was as well. Could Shearer have played in the number 10 role? Could he have played out wide in the left? Could he have played out wide in the right? Actually, he was a great crosser with the ball, but I don't think he could have done. But in terms of Michael Owen and what's come out here, I don't blame him for coming out. I think we want to hear what was going through people's minds at that particular time. Are we surprised? A little. Are we surprised that Alan Shearer has come out and criticised that?
But doesn't he have a right to do so? He was his manager.
Of course he does. Of course.
He's also a huge Newcastle fan. And Big Al is loved in these parts. So he's going to come out and defend his football club.
And why wouldn't he?
Yeah, of course.
And he
that.
never had that mentality. He had serious injuries as much as Michael Owen did, and yet his mentality was still, I want to play until I almost drop. Everybody's different. Everybody's mentality, everybody's mindset, everybody's built in a different way.
The argument will be that comes out of that, and what actual Michael did say is, well, if you were that desperate to retire, why didn't you retire earlier? You had enough money, you had all those things.
But sometimes you're
but it's been
you're still in your 20s.
isn't it?
Sometimes he was still in his 20s, and he can't retire when he's in his 20s. He wants to try and get back to how he was. He probably knew he never was going to. In fact, if he's saying that he didn't even feel he could run in the channels, then clearly he wasn't going to. But he was still one of those players, if you give him a chance in the box, he'd finish. Was he the player he was 10 years earlier? No, of course not. But managers will always try to gamble on someone like him because he could score goals, even till his last days.
Would it have helped if he had actually told Shearer first, he was going to say something like this, and then it would have been easier to accept as compared to just come out of the blue and just...
No, I mean, he doesn't have to tell Shearer, he doesn't have to ask permission to come out and say something. He can say what he wants, but Alan Shearer is more than entitled to react to it. As Danny says, he cares about this club. He was manager for those final games where he was at the club, Michael Owen, and didn't play in one of them as well. Allegedly, it was claimed that he said, I don't want to play in one of the games, I might get injured, my contract's out, I won't get another club. You shouldn't be thinking like that, and I'd criticise him for that. You're being paid by Newcastle, and you have to go out there, and they're on the point of relegation.
Yeah.
But I think it's fascinating to hear world-class players and how they were thinking at that particular time.